Meghan Markle's podcast has ended its 8-episode run and there are no plans to release a second season at this point. What a surprise.
So if she walked out on Harry, she would never reputationally survive it. But then Harry, without Meghan, what's his life in America?
For years, Meghan Markle dazzled us with the image of a self-made duchess, equal parts regal icon and social justice heroine. But now the picture-perfect narrative seems to be cracking. The moment it hit, a split-second punchline on national television. Saturday Night Live didn't just poke fun. They twisted the knife. Colin Jost, standing behind the Weekend Update desk, grinned as a photo of Harry and Meghan flashed on screen. All that Britain demands in return, he said, is that we keep these two. The audience didn't flinch, they roared. It was more than a laugh, it was a collective nod. A sign that the world may be done pretending. Because when comedy cuts that deep, it's rarely fiction. It's because the public already suspects the fairy tale has frayed. That joke wasn't just about overexposure or royal fatigue. It echoed something sharper, a suspicion that Meghan's image of relatable resilience is more marketing pitch than memoir. It went viral in seconds, not just because it was funny, but because it voiced the uncomfortable question hanging in the air for months, maybe years. What exactly are they selling us now? And more importantly, are we still buying it?
As we've spoken about, this show has completely underperformed. It did not really appear on the Spotify charts. This was, of course, the podcast that she made with Lemonada Media. It's still unclear, actually, about what money has come from this podcast. So originally, when she signed up with Spotify, there was money up front. That deal went south. She signed up with Lemonada.
If the SNL jab was the spark, Meghan's response looked an awful lot like an emergency flare. Less than 24 hours later, she resurfaced in a flurry of PDA with Harry at Beyoncé's final Cowboy Carter concert in LA. Matching hats, engraved names, and a carefully edited recap posted to social media before the sweat from the stadium had even dried. But it wasn't just about date night glam. It felt calculated, like someone trying to plaster over a bruise with glitter. Sure, there was a kiss on the cheek, a handhold, the usual choreography, but look a little closer. Harry's smile barely flickered. His body language, as one lip reader joked online, was practically screaming, help.
Now, Harry and Meghan have also been accused of hypocrisy after they restructured their staff, creating what has been labelled the Montecito Royal Court. What does that mean, Kinsey? What's happening?
Which brings us to the whispers growing louder behind the scenes. Insiders, some linked to long-retired royal aides, are floating a theory that feels more thriller than fairy tale, that the Beyoncé date night was less of a romantic evening and more of a distraction campaign. Theories of a premeditated PR strategy, complete with a social carousel rollout, started gaining traction on forums and tabloid panels alike. And then came the iceberg beneath the waterline, talk of a secret divorce fund. Now, to be clear, Meghan's not moving out tomorrow, but people who've worked with her on both sides of the Atlantic say she's been unusually focused on financial independence. Not just security, but maneuverability. She's launched a rebranded lifestyle business, cut a licensing deal with Netflix, and spoken on record about the loneliness of entrepreneurship and the guilt of having a lot. It was subtle, but the breadcrumbs were there. It's easy to attach to this idea of I'll never have enough, she told guest Sarah Blakely on her podcast. Depending on who's listening, that sounds like a woman chasing legacy, or someone laying the groundwork for an exit.
And it was just an amazing surprise. It was so sweet and natural and very romantic. He got on one knee.
Of course. Was it an instant yes from you?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I could barely let you finish proposing. I said, can I say yes now?
She didn't even let me finish. She said, can I say yes, can I say yes now? And then there was hugs and I had the ring in my finger and I was like, can I give you the ring? She goes, oh yes, the ring. So no, it was a really nice moment. It was just the two of us. And
here's the part that gives the speculation bite, Meghan's latest ventures. Her lifestyle brand, the podcast, the streaming content aren't just about building wealth. They're about building her wealth, her image, her solo platform. She's quick to say she's not an influencer, but she certainly isn't playing backup to Harry anymore. In interviews, she now refers to herself as a female founder, a multi-hyphenate, and once even mused aloud that she wasn't sure what title belonged on her resume. Funny how Duchess of Sussex barely made the cut.
And if I were, if I were a troublemaker, I might accuse Harry and Meghan of unconscious bias in the employment department, looking at all the new faces that are coming onto work for Harry and Meghan independently and together for their entertainment ventures. And if history repeats itself as much as Harry whines that it does, both Harry and Meghan will continue to reject any and all sound advice and will potentially treat their staff poorly. So good luck.
It's this tension between the curated brand and the crumbling narrative that has many wondering if Meghan is preparing for a future without Harry. Not necessarily legally, not yet, but strategically. A quiet positioning of assets, allies, and optics. Because what happens if the marriage really does fracture? Royal watchers are divided. Some say she'd fall without the prince. Others argue she's already outgrowing the fairy tale. Either way, it's clear she's not waiting around to find out. At that Beyoncé concert, she looked radiant. That's not new. Meghan's always known how to shine in front of the lens. But Harry? He looked dimmed, isolated. And according to reports, that wasn't an illusion. In the days leading up to their date night, sources told Page 6 that Harry had effectively been blackballed by his own family. They don't trust him, the insider said. And that's the bottom line. The divide isn't just emotional, it's strategic. The firm, as it's known, has seemingly written them off. There's no real path back to the palace. And if that's true, then the only kingdom left to manage is Meghan's.
Just an amazing surprise. It was so sweet and natural and very romantic. He got on one knee.
Of course.
Was it an instant yes from you?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I could barely let you finish proposing. I said, can I say yes now?
She didn't even let me finish. She said, can I say yes, can I say yes now? And then there was hugs and I had the ring in my finger and I was like, can I give you the ring? She goes, oh yes, the ring. So no, it was...
And manage it she has. From Montecito, she's built an entire alternative court, 11 hand-picked staffers, publicists, strategists, and brand consultants. Some critics have slammed it as hypocritical. After all, this is the same couple who famously slammed royal bureaucracy as oppressive. Now they've created their own. One commentator even called it a desperate bid to save the brand. But behind the shade lies a valid question. If you've walked away from royalty, why rebuild it brick by brick in California? The answer might be more personal than political. Because while Meghan is building, Harry seems to be unraveling. His recent projects feel sparse, even scattered. One minute he's pushing a memoir, the next he's dropping out of joint appearances. Multiple insiders say the couple is now undergoing a quiet professional separation. Not a breakup, but a split in purpose. Meghan wants to become a billion-dollar brand. Harry just wants to survive. He's spoken openly about trauma, isolation, and struggling with anxiety in crowds. People close to him say California hasn't cured it, it's only dimmed the spotlight enough to make the shadows deeper.
I don't think that I would call it a whirlwind in terms of our relationship. Obviously, there have been layers attached to how public it has become after we had a good 5-6 months almost with just privacy, which was amazing. But no, I think we were able to really have so much time just to connect, and we never went longer than 2 weeks without seeing each other, even though we were obviously doing a long-distance relationship, so.
Which brings us to the money. Meghan's relationship with wealth has been a recurring motif both in her podcast and in leaked commentary. She says there's guilt attached to having a lot and fears she'll never have enough. That's not the sort of thing you usually hear from someone living in a $14 million estate, but it plays into a growing sense that Meghan is constantly trying to prove she belongs, not just in the royal world, but in every room she walks into. Entrepreneur, mother, mogul, rebel, the list keeps growing, as if none of the titles quite fit. And that might be the core of the current backlash. The public was sold a story of love, of escape, of authenticity, but now the cracks are visible. The timeline's wobbly, the tone's shifted. Meghan's early narrative was built on vulnerability, crying on camera, fleeing palace pressures, finding her voice. But vulnerability can't be curated forever. These days, she's pitching jams, not justice. Her Instagram aesthetic is less activist Duchess and more goop with better lighting. It's glossy, it's deliberate, and according to royal insiders, it's also a sign.
It was really refreshing because given that I didn't know a lot about him, everything that I've learned about him, I learned through him, as opposed to having grown up around different news stories or tabloids or whatever else. Anything I learned about him and his family was what he would share with me, and vice versa. So for both of us, it was just a really authentic and organic way to get to know each other.
Some believe her recent business pivots, especially the Netflix licensing tie-up, aren't just about scale. They're about shelter, insulation, independence. With whispers of legal advisors circling and divorce fund rumors picking up steam, even former staffers are weighing in. One longtime consultant who worked with a previous Sussex vendor told a UK tabloid, when the mood shifted at home, the branding changed overnight. The implication? That Meghan's business isn't reacting to the market, it's reacting to the marriage.
I don't think that we can ever have peace with my family unless the truth is out there.
And yet, despite all the controlled messaging, the one thing that hasn't landed is trust. For a couple that once stood as symbols of truth-telling, the SNL moment was brutal. Not because it was mean, but because it was widely accepted. All that Britain demands is that we keep these two. That joke didn't need context. It didn't need explanation. It needed only an image, and the implication was clear. The world sees the performance, they're just no longer buying the story. And if that's the case, then what happens next isn't just about a brand collapse, it's about a reckoning. Because the public once rooted for Meghan. They wanted her to win. But somewhere between the palace walkouts and the Montecito media blitz, the narrative flipped. Now, for every carefully cropped family photo, there's a growing digital undercurrent of doubt. Every podcast quote gets picked apart, every smile dissected, every kiss scrutinized. The same charm offensive that once dazzled the globe is now starting to feel offensive.
In the world.
There's a lot that I can forgive, but there needs to be conversations and then in order for reconciliation, and part of that has to be accountability.
Because here's the thing, we believed in the love story, we bought into the struggle, we applauded the independence, but now, with the glitter fading and the filters lifting, the whispers are getting harder to ignore. Is the queen of reinvention running out of moves, or is this all just another act, another reinvention waiting in the wings? Either way, one truth is settling in. The Meghan Markle we thought we knew might never have existed at all. While Meghan expands her empire under California sunshine, Prince Harry's world has reportedly been shrinking. Behind the carefully filtered images and orchestrated appearances, insiders say he's quietly unraveling. Multiple sources close to the couple claim that Harry, once so defiant and energized in their breakaway from royal life, now seems adrift. He's said to be making discreet calls to friends back in the UK, even reconnecting with old palisades he once distanced himself from. It's not a full-blown olive branch, but it does raise eyebrows. One source familiar with the royal circle put it bluntly: he's starting to sound like someone who's circling back. While Meghan thrives in a brand-driven world of curated launches, high-level meetings, and back-to-back podcast interviews, Harry reportedly struggles with the pace and the premise. The flash of Montecito, with its sprawling estates and power lunch circles, isn't where he grew up, and according to those who've known him since his military days, it's not where he belongs. He once traded palace constraints for Californian freedom, but now that freedom feels like isolation. Even his most public-facing work, the Invictus Games, has been noticeably muted lately. Some are asking, has he lost the will to lead or just the room to breathe?
Leave the children, you see. And in America, the rules about, children, they're always with the mother, nearly always.
Yeah.
So I mean, so it's not going to happen. So do you remember where 5 years? Everyone, when they got married, a lot of members actually of the royal family even said it won't last 5 years, but it has.
It has.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
lasted 7.
Yeah.
Through a lot of crises, through a lot of,
huge pressure.
We've seen the signs: a blank stare behind Meghan's spotlight, the quiet retreat from media interviews, the fact that he's largely absent from season 2 of her Netflix series, allegedly by design. It's all part of a growing pattern. Those close to the Sussexes say Harry is feeling increasingly like a guest in Meghan's world. And the world is noticing. A recent expert told The Mirror that Meghan is a fighter, someone who wants to prove she's more than a duchess. But that same drive may be leaving Harry in the shadows. If he once felt like a partner in the plan, now he looks more like a supporting character trying to remember his lines. Meanwhile, Meghan's brand, as ever, is facing its own reality check. Yes, the product sold out quickly, but backlash came even faster. Critics are now calling it royalty washed, a lifestyle venture with a crown-shaped asterisk. From the embossed jars of jam to the subtle palace references on product packaging, nothing feels accidental. And that's the issue. What was marketed as personal and authentic is now being scrutinized as calculated and performative. One branding expert told the Daily Mail, "It's hard to sell relatable when your life costs $15 million and your business plan is backed by Netflix." And it's not just the products, it's the posture. Meghan's recent interviews make frequent mention of being a mother of 2 while building a brand, reminding audiences, intentionally or not, that she's juggling more than most. But for some, that narrative rings hollow. As one former PR advisor put it, when you curate every detail, the audience stops trusting the mess. And if there's one thing the public no longer believes in, it's perfection. From the coordinated family photo dumps to the pristine podcast soundbites, As Ever feels less like a reflection of real life and more like a very expensive mirror.
But what people don't know is the efforts that I've gone to resolve this privately, both with my brother and with my father, constantly for the last 6 years, but especially the last 2. I think my mother would realise the missed opportunity with Meghan being part of the institution, part of the monarchy. And I think she is looking forward to the time when William and I see eye to eye and are joined at the hip again.
There's also the matter of identity. Meghan herself admitted in a recent interview, "If I had to write a resume, I don't know what I would call myself." That might sound poetic, but for critics it raises a harder truth. Has Meghan crafted so many roles that the original one has vanished? former actress, duchess, activist, podcast host, entrepreneur, mother, founder. It's a list that impresses and confuses in equal measure. The latest pivot into home goods, followed by talk of fashion and hospitality, leaves some wondering if the brand is expanding or just drifting. And through it all, Harry remains notably silent, not just in interviews, but in presence. Even their anniversary, post a mood board-style upload Meghan shared with fans, felt more like a campaign than a celebration. Notably, there was no visible message from Harry, observers noticed. Social media lit up with speculation. Was this silence mutual or strategic? And if they're communicating so publicly through curated snippets, what does that say about the real conversations happening behind closed doors? Several insiders have gone further. One royal commentator hinted that Meghan's increasingly independent ventures might not just be entrepreneurial. She's separating her identity, yes, but also her income, they said. That's never just about business. Add to that the swirling whispers of a professional separation, and suddenly, what once looked like healthy individual growth now feels more like preemptive distancing, especially with reports that Harry's mental health has taken a downturn. His own memoir revealed past struggles with anxiety and agoraphobia, and experts warn that public life in the US, with its relentless optics, may have only intensified that battle.
You know, I love every member of my family, despite the differences. I don't look at her as an evil stepmother. I see someone who has done everything that she can to, you know, improve her own reputation and her own image.
In this equation, the kids, Archie and Lilibet, are the anchors. Meghan often references them in interviews, painting pictures of bedtime routines and garden picnics. But Harry, he's been less forthcoming. One telling moment, Meghan described racing home after a business trip just to leave money under Archie's pillow after he lost a tooth. It was a touching anecdote, but also a revealing one. She told it alone, and that's the recurring theme. Meghan appears to be moving at full speed, launching products, planning future fashion lines, doing press. Harry, meanwhile, is either in the background or off-screen entirely. When he does appear, his expressions tell a different story. Less confident, more contemplative, as if he's wondering what this California dream has cost him, and if it's still his dream at all. What happens when one half of a couple wants to conquer the spotlight while the other craves retreat? The answer may already be unfolding in slow motion. A carefully built joint narrative is starting to fracture at the edges. Some royal experts believe that if Harry ever seriously considers returning to the UK in any capacity, that might spell the end not just of the brand, but of the bond. Others argue that they're simply evolving apart, each finding their own lane. But if that's true, it begs the question, how long can a power couple stay powerful when their paths no longer overlap?
I think, you know, I think she does need Harry, you know, I think she does. And she must know by now that she doesn't get everything right.
Yeah, so we're behaviour experts.
And what does the palace think of all this? Reports suggest Harry remains an outsider in royal circles, despite occasional soft overtures. Forgiveness, they say, might come in time, but trust? That door slammed years ago. And with Meghan reportedly doubling down on her American empire, a royal reunion feels more unlikely than ever. Especially if, as some insiders claim, Meghan is preparing for an eventual solo future, whether by strategy or necessity. So what are we really witnessing here? A modern love story weathering its next chapter, or the quiet disassembly of a once unbreakable brand? Because if even the most glamorous, untouchable love story can unravel, what does that say about the truth behind the fairy tale? Let us know what you think. Are Meghan and Harry heading for a reinvention, a rupture, or something entirely different? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the stories the stars don't want told. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and remember, the truth is rarely filtered.